I hope you guys are enjoying your time here. And thank you so much for joining us for our Hair Love panel. Today, we're going to be discussing Black women and their hair, from identity to the Crown Act to the $1 billion business, beauty salons, and all of that. And I would like to introduce our panel. First up, we have Maya, who is a celebrity hairstylist and the creative founder of the DOUX, which is a natural hair care line. And next up, we have Daryce, who is a natural hair educator and the founder of New York City-based salon, A Curl Can Dream. And last but not least, we have AJ, who is the founder of All Natural Kinks, a hair care line designed for women with naturally curly and kinky hair. Thank you, ladies, for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for it.
I'm so excited because hair is like one of my favorite things to, get lost in YouTube on, to try new stuff and to talk about. And the first thing I want to know is, what are you guys' personal definition of natural hair?
I'll start. My definition of natural hair is what grows out of your head naturally. Literally by that definition. So whatever grows out of your head is your natural hair. Until you add extra hair in it or chemically process it, is it unnatural? But it's still your natural hair, even if you chemically process it with color or a relaxer. So I consider any hair that grows out of your hair, no matter how you decide to wear it, as your natural hair. We only talk about it being artificial once we're adding pieces, wigs, wefts, and things like that.
Okay, because the reason I asked that, because when people say natural hair, they take out relaxers out the conversation. Like, they only think about virgin hair as being natural. And I think that's like a really important thing to like let people know. As long as it's coming out your head, if you color it, if you chemically relax it, straighten it, jerry curl it, it's still your natural hair, because it's growing from your scalp. So I also want to know, what has your personal hair journeys been like? Because we all have that hair journey that we start off like probably not loving our hair, and we learn how to love our hair. So like, what has each of your personal hair journeys been like? We can start with Maya.
For me, I grew up in 80s, 90s as a kid. So really, when I was in, the stage of really building my self-identity, if you would say, at adolescence and childhood, it was at a time where natural hair, loose curls, wearing your own texture wasn't a thing, unless you naturally had a looser curl or a wavy. If you were able to achieve a certain look that was, the status quo or desirable in that space, then that's what that was the kind of natural that was okay. But I think that the reason that I always felt good about my hair was because of the time and attention that was given to it by my mother and my aunts. So I really think that a lot of us, particularly Black women who grow into, this natural hair journey, or just our hair journey, really has a lot to do with what was cultivated, what was encouraged and nurtured emotionally and psychologically by the people that were around us. For me personally, my mother, my aunts, my grandparents always reaffirmed and validated, my existence and my presence and my own beauty, and taught me to see myself as just as valuable and beautiful as anyone else. So growing up, I had a different hair journey than a lot of the people that I knew, and essentially the clients that I had in the salon.
I love that. I think that's awesome. I can go next if I can pivot.
Yeah, go ahead, AJ.
So mine was one of those stories where it was more of a negative experience. Maybe those are kind of the people more that, Maya, that you have interacted with. I actually had a perm in my hair when I was younger, about 8. And then, my mom, she was somewhat knowledgeable, but not too knowledgeable about, moisturizing hair. She knew a lot about greasing the scalp and, trimming ends every 6 months, but she wasn't totally like how to care for it and that type of thing. When I had that perm, I also did swimming full time. I was actually a competitive swimmer at a young age. And so that's kind of where my journey with hair started, because it was huge breakage. A lot of breakage happened with that a little bit earlier in my, adolescence, junior high, 6th grade. That's when a lot of what I had just broke off just because so many chemicals, and I basically had to start over. And it was a lot of insecurity around that, because I didn't really grow up with a lot of Black people around me. I grew up with a lot of Hispanics around me, a lot of white people around me, a lot of Asian people around me, and they have, just a long flowing hair. And I think for me, I just could not really find my fit. I didn't really find, my beauty, to be honest with you, until years later, when I decided to, actually dig in and figure out, like, what is my hair, what are products, how can I take care of it. So for a long time, even throughout high school, I didn't really find beauty in my hair for a while.
So I'll add to that story where I have secondhand experience with people who grew up being nurtured with their hair, and people telling you this is okay that you look this way, and it's okay, this is your hair and it's beautiful. And then I have experiences secondhand with people who have had the opposite negative experience. And so I guess mine is not opposite of either, but kind of neutral, where there were never any feelings around hair in my household. My mom wore a Caesar for the majority of my life, a Caesar like, boy cut, brush cut. I don't know where you're from or where what you call it, but in New York, we call it a Caesar cut. And it's really just a one level, really low cut. Sometimes it was blonde, sometimes it was her natural color. But there was really no emphasis around hair and like its importance or it being my beauty as a child. I was praised for other things. And my mom didn't do this consciously. I talk to her about it often now that this has been almost a decade as a hairstylist. I kind of talk to her a lot more deeply about why she did certain things the way she did, or why she didn't do things she did. But she kind of let me do what I wanted to do when I felt like it. I remember my first relaxer, it wasn't a negative experience. I went to a really dope hair salon in Harlem on 135th Street. And I believe that's 7th. And they wouldn't let you get a relaxer too soon. They wouldn't let you over blow dry your hair. They would do rod sets. So I grew up knowing there was a better way to take care of the hair. Then I want to say high school. I got into high school in 2005. By 2007, I was about 16. And I asked my mom for the same pixie cut that I have right now. And she was like, okay, go ahead and do it. I went ahead and did that. But when I went to school and that grew out, people started like, oh, you cut your hair short, because everybody is used to wearing their hair long. Anyway, fast forward, I shaved my head in high school to look just like my mother. And my sister was also in college at the time. So exploring her natural hair journey. If you think about just where we were with hair in the early 2000s, a lot of people still were wearing micro braids and weave extensions that, quite frankly, they were lying about. People weren't openly sharing that they had bundles in their hair. So, that was the era that I grew up in. Either way, needless to say, I showed up in high school with a shaved head, and they took me to the guidance counselor. And that was the first time that I realized people were absorbing what I did to myself as like thinking I was having a mental breakdown. Meanwhile, I'm trying to look like my mom. Either way, that gave me a sort of freedom with myself. I've watched my hair have green hair, purple hair, red hair, every haircut in the book, long hair, natural hair, shaved side. And I go back to this relaxed pixie that I had in high school all the time, because this is my comfort zone. This is my look. And I have found solace in knowing who I am and knowing what I want to look like. So as a stylist, my job is to just encourage and empower women to find out what you want to look like in the world and how you want to show up and how you want to be perceived. Because we can talk natural hair, we can talk heritage, we can talk culture all day long. But hair is really the one accessory you can't take off, and it's how you show up in the world, and it's what greets people first. So my introduction to hair, or how my hair journey has shaped how I feel about myself, it's pretty detached. My hair really doesn't represent me, but sometimes it does, and I have that freedom, and I'm really grateful for my mom for that.
I love all that, because kicking off where around the time you decided to shave your head was also like the growth of the new resurgence of the natural hair boom that just took over like the branding industry and social media, and everyone learning to love their natural kinks and stuff. So like, I want to know, like, just being in the industry, what factors did you see help give birth to more Black women or women of color loving like their hair in all forms, like buzz cut, fades, curls, kinks, all that?
I would say two things, and Maya, you correct me if I'm wrong, two things around this time that happened. We had a Black first lady, which means Black women's hair was under a microscope and on every front page of everything. So people had more comments out loud. They might have had them in private before, but they were out loud now that our first lady was Black. That's in 2008. And we can quote me, correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say the boom of the internet. Google formed in like 2008-ish, around that time, something like that, 2007, maybe 2006, maybe earlier. But the access to, oh, there's a woman in Texas who feels the same way as I do in the Bronx right now, that's powerful. So I want to say it was the internet and our first lady being a Black woman, that being put under a microscope in that way.
Everyone agree, or anybody want to add anything extra to that?
I would definitely say, just as an industry, around really before, I would say before, I remember the inauguration because that was right before I opened my salon in Germany. And I would say about 2 years before that, there were a lot of conversations around a lot of the new brands that were, showing up in the interspace. I think in our industry, particularly in the professional hair care industry and the textured hair care industries, we just weren't ready. So there wasn't a lot of conversation and nurturing in the salon space around natural hair because stylists weren't prepared. A lot of us were, if you weren't a natural hair enthusiast like I was, if you didn't have the skill set to treat natural hair in its raw virgin state, there just wasn't a lot of support in our industry. So of course the consumer begins to hijack the conversation because people were looking for a smarter way to care for their hair. It's a conversation that's always happened in the professional space, but it's something that, because of the emergence of the internet and YouTube and the forums and the blogs, people who were consuming products really had, begun to voice their feelings and share their experiences. So it's a combination for me, just in my observation from behind the chair, it was a combination of what was or wasn't happening. I mean, for me, it was happening in my salon, but what wasn't happening in a lot of salon spaces, and just the demand and the curiosity. Culturally, we were sharing a lot of our experiences online. The downside to that is when there is no professional voice, when there is no scientific, factually based voice in this space, you have consumers kind of hijacking the conversation and coming up with their own answers that have nothing to do with cosmetology. So for us, it was a missed opportunity at the beginning. We picked it up, we got this, but it was definitely for me, in my, professional community, and a missed opportunity for us to help to guide the culture in what made sense, instead of doing a lot of things, historically that were based on bad science, really helping our consumer make the shift, helping our clients and the culture make the shift. We just really weren't available because we were still learning ourselves.
And I love that you mentioned just that, that consumer, internet boom, just especially with YouTube, because to be honest, that's how I got my start. That's how I got my passion, because I felt like in high school, like I was in high school, like I graduated 2007. So it kind of, I guess, just the YouTube movement, we had like maybe 4 or 5 main people that were kind of like, really repping YouTube. And, in high school, I just had no idea. And to go from like not really knowing, kind of not knowing how to get my hair past a certain length, to just being able to just tune in, in my spare time in college, and to kind of see women. Because my thing was this, I was like, seeing people take care of themselves, but see results from what they, actually studying different brands that were out, and studying, the natural way to do it, and study different ingredients. That's what really kind of, the internet, YouTube, and just those forums, kind of being tuned into all those forums, like, wow, just being, that's really what kind of grabbed me and what, really started my passion and realizing, wow, I can do this. Wow, I'm not the only one. Wow, you know what? My hair doesn't have to be this length for, forever. So that really is, using their tips. That's kind of how I got my start in the game.
Speaking of, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add, just because I find myself always sitting on two ends of the fences because of where I am in my career versus how old I am and where I fall chronologically and what happened and where I was in life, right? So again, I was in high school in 2007, 2018. I also want to just say this on record because I don't think we say this enough. Being a teenage girl and trying to figure out how you want to look and being natural is a very hard thing to do. That's a very fragile point in your life psychologically. And to not feel your best or not know that how you wear your hair naturally is just not it, or it's not working, or like that messes with you. So I just want to put that out there. But on top of that, by the time I became a licensed cosmetologist and was actually doing hair in the salon, it was 2015. And still at this point, working in a Black-owned salon, I was the only one doing what I was doing. And this is in New York City. And I'm not saying it wasn't being done, but I'm just saying it was being done very particularly in just the twist out kind of way. We didn't see natural hair how we see it now. So as we talk about this conversation, I think it is important to make sure we make these chronological marks and how fast all of this happened for everyone. And to Maya's point, that stylists never had the time, those that were really in it and in the field still weren't even booking online yet, much less trying to get online, trying to show somebody how to do a twist out. So it's grace on each end as we all learn how this thing kind of formed, and it all is just what grows out of all of our heads naturally. So it's all messing with us psychologically. So I just wanted to put that out there.
And I want to piggyback off that because, like, also with this boom and reverb of things, it's newfound discrimination. Like, you have texture discrimination, you have curl envy, and, like, how have you seen that play affect women of color self-esteem? Because, you have people on YouTube in the comments that be like, well, I did what she did, but my curls don't pop like hers do. And, like, they feel it, like, it messes with their self-esteem. Like, how have you seen that firsthand?
I'm sorry, I'm distracted because I see Daryce looking at me, and we're kind of like internally winking at each other because this is not a newfound discrimination. It's something that's been here. The entire textured hair space, natural hair space, beauty salon space is really a derivative. It's grown from colorism and texturism, culturally. So this isn't new. It's just something that is a lot more.
You have
present.
A camera on it. It's just like everything else. They didn't just start shooting.
Exactly.
For real.
It's something that's always been a part of how we see ourselves. So again, it goes back to what I was saying. Who sent you those messages when you were, yay high between someone's knees is really how you see or how affected you are as a person, as a stylist, as a client by texturism and colorism. I think that we have, there's this idea that Black women have to prove that our hair can grow, that it can be long, that, as if long is better, that it can shine, as if shine is better. So all of these concepts, all of these ideas that we have come from just who we are culturally. And the salon spaces really magnify and amplify something that has always there. So when you're talking about curl envy, there was a message that was sent to you, whether it was on TV, whether it was the relationship that your mother had with your hair, the things that you overheard about your hair. All of these things contribute to your idea of what you value and what you envy. There are a lot of, celebrities with a certain hair type that is the aspiration or seems to be what everyone wants. So we chase that and completely abandon what we have and then complain that we don't see enough of that in the media, when what's really happening is that our favorite celebrities aren't representing their real hair in the media. So it's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? It's always a combination of, yes, these salon spaces and the beauty space and our self-esteem and culture and all of that. But it has a lot more to do with the messages that we sent and the messages that we repeat in the media and on social and all of that.
I 100% agree, Maya. And I would just add, it is why, shameless plug, I named my salon what I named it. It is a curl can dream for a reason. Because firsthand, I watched it. I grew up with the internet. I've had an Instagram since 2011. I've watched what the comments say, what the YouTube comments say, but then I see it firsthand repeated in my chair. Then you throw in most of my friends are influencers. Not we met through influencing, but these are legit people I grew up with in New York City are now the influencers and they're now my clients. And so now I have to have real conversations with them about what messages they put forth in the world because they don't even realize the effect of the woman that's coming to see me on Thursday at 4 o'clock that envies her hair, but doesn't even understand that this is just how this girl hair grows out of her head. But she's doing product, videos. So I watch it firsthand happen everywhere, but most importantly happen in my chair. And the conversation during our consultation is the most important. And that's where I find out the most about people. When people tell me, oh, well, I don't think I can carry a short look. Why not? My question is always why. And I'll probably ask you why 15 times for anything you tell me, because it helps me understand who you talk to about your hair, who talked to you about your hair, how you feel about yourself, things that you didn't even know. And it's kind of a therapy session, or lets people realize that they do need to go to therapy to address just how you, again, like I said, how you want to show up in the world and how you want the world to view you. I think as Black women, we're told we have to be a lot of things. We're told we are a lot of things, but we haven't really figured out who we are because we are not a monolith. I am not the same as Maya. I don't wear my hair relaxed or short for the same reasons that she chooses to. I do not, wear my hair natural because of the reasons that my best friend chose to go natural. We all have our own specific journeys. However, the loud speaker out there for us is saying one thing, and we all get so caught up in that. So I want to say that, yes, the salon space is very important in how we speak to the consumer. But I think it's time that the consumer realizes that it's the same way in every other market. You realized you had a lot of money and control. You have a lot of money and control in what you see and what you consume on a daily basis.
That part.
And it's what comes back to you. The production is a result of what you consume.
Right. And just to piggyback on that, when we get to complaining about representation mattering, and we go in on the brands and the ads, why are we not speaking to the people that we are wanting to model our looks after? Call your favorite celebrity up and ask her why you haven't seen her hair ever. I mean, I have an answer for that. Usually it has a lot to do with the union and who's on the set, which is a whole nother, these things trickle down. It's under the iceberg.
There's a lot
of, celebrities are wearing their hair the way that they do because there is no one Black. It really is like 5%.
Protection. It really is protection. Right. And it's not protection for the hair. It's protection from the people who are touching.
It's protection from the stylists and from the lack of knowledge that they have on these sets. But that's something that trickles down from the industry that has to be addressed. But at the same time, we have our Issa Rae's and, Yara Shahidis that are wearing their own hair. So we need to put, while we're making all of these demands on what we want to see in the marketplace and what we want represented in the media and these ads, we also have to make sure that we insist that we see more women that look like us, looking like us. It really does go both ways. You want to be what you see. And so the conversation has to be broadened, not just to what's natural and what's not. And, it's not an us against them, because that's how we sell, is to convince you that there's this conspiracy going on against you or that someone is trying to take something from you. But a lot of what we're missing as Black women in this space is because of what we're not insisting that we see. It's more than just saying that we want to see Black dolls and Black people in commercials. And, when we see a girl with the afro, we have this sense of pride, if it's a rental car commercial or whatever. But we need to make sure that the people that we're looking at, that we're modeling our look and our aesthetic after, are encouraged and feel like they have the support of the culture to show up how they really look.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And kind of just something, I mean, I'm hearing this and I'm like, ooh, wow, it's great. You know, I think it's great. I haven't heard a perspective, I'm going to say, in this setting, you know, just from stylists and people working in that profession. I think it's incredible just to hear it from that perspective. And I'd say on top of that, like, I think a lot of consumers, what I hear, you know, from that side, and even myself, is just not knowing what to do in education, and not going, you know, not using that option as, like, you know, a natural hair salon where, you know, someone's kind of going to tell me, but, you know, if I'm at my house, you know, and I don't know what to do, or I don't know how to keep my hair moisturized, or I don't know about clipping my ends, or I think shea, you know, or, you know, shea butter is a moisturizer. Like, I think these are just questions where, you know, for me personally, just trying to, like, really stress that education part of it. So educating, again, you know, of course, obviously when they go to salon, but educating, okay, what can I do on a day-to-day basis to keep my hair healthy in any texture, right? Whether that's, you know, kinky texture or, you know, curly texture, because some people just don't really know what to do on, like, a regular everyday, like, what shampoo do I use, that type of thing.
I totally hear you.
Yeah, so my thing is just, like, you know, educating on, like, a, you know, in between those salon visits, or, like, if you choose to do it yourself, here is what you need to do to make sure you know, to empower you to, you know, if you want long hair. My thing is always, like it was mentioned, it's not always about long hair, it's not always about short hair, you know, it's just kind of like what makes you feel good, and being able to maintain that style that you want to maintain. Options.
Absolutely.
No, I totally understand. And this is my last point on this, just because there's a lot of question marks there that I know I hear all the time, and we leave them unanswered, right? And so here's the platform, right? And this is me, Daryce Tolliver, sitting on this platform, and owner of a hair salon, one with many clients, people still waiting to get in the door. And this is my gift. This is what I want to tell everyone if I ever had the opportunity. There's a certain thing called science. And I'm not being sarcastic, but I'm very, very serious. I'm going to say this very specifically. And this is why me and Maya love each other in a way that up here, you know, why everything makes sense, right? We went to school to study this science around hairs. Cosmetology is the study of hair, skin, and nails, right? Everything in science, you know, let me put it this way. Water is 2 hydrogens to an oxygen. Hair is made up of certain things. There's surface texture involved. There's a lot of things that go into hair that we were not taught culturally. And so as we relearn these, there's a lot that you can't do at home. There are some things that you can do at home. Yes, you can wash your hair, you can do those things. But I challenge my clients, as soon as they say they don't know, it's because it's uncomfortable. I ask them about laundry. And laundry pertains to hair in a very, very specific way, because we are so particular about how we wash certain things, because they are of a different fabric, right? Stick with me. We have silk, we have cotton. How do you dry either one? I'm seriously asking. How do you dry either one?
One on high heat, and one, you know, you put it up to
dry.
How
do you dry silk?
Silk, I let air dry.
Yeah,
exactly.
I like that.
So those with the silkier texture. Can I just
is this a trick question?
No, it's not. Hear me out. I want y'all to hear me, because this is what goes through my brain. Like, this is what I be doing at home, because I have to make analogies hit home in a 3-hour appointment with women who spend a lot of money to come see me, and I need to make it make sense. And this is why people pay me, because I have been able to do this. When you hang dry silk, think about somebody who has a silkier texture. I mean, smoother, swavy, wavy. They have the ability to air dry a lot better than somebody has the hair that feels a little more cottony, that would require some heat to dry it. You understand? That's why somebody would need to sit under a hooded dryer, as opposed to being able to air dry, as opposed to being able to diffuse. That's why certain people are able to use certain products, is because of the surface of their texture, not their curl pattern, or not how thick their hair is. Understanding that science comes with seeing a professional, the same way you go to a doctor, because you cannot get on WebMD and diagnose your headache and say that you have cancer. At some point, you do have to consult the professional about things that are beyond just doing it at home. And so, to answer a lot of your questions, I think we sit at home and we say, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do this. But the quicker way is going to the person that has studied it for years.
Right. I think when it comes to education, though, one thing that was never really discussed is trust. In order to educate you, in order to teach you anything, there has to be this basic foundation of trust. And it's a trust and respect. You know, it's you respecting my craft and trusting me, trusting that I have your best interest at heart and I have taken the time to educate you. And that is really what has been missing in the salon space. The reason why
Yes.
millions of people are on YouTube right now and why they started to go in '05 is because of the lack of trust that a lot of us had in the salon space, because the technology didn't exist. There wasn't, you know, a workflow for a lot of stylists. A lot of stylists weren't able to pivot because of the time increments that it takes to fit in a client with natural hair. I wasn't doing twist outs. I just wasn't doing relaxers. It wasn't, you know, a let's choose this kind of style over another. It was just this. There's a smarter way to do this. So, you know, there's a trust factor, I think, that has caused the culture to really abandon salons. And, you know, 2 decades later, the industry as a whole is finally starting to get that back.
So before we go, I will love for you guys to leave the people watching with advice as far as like what you experience. A lot of people come to the salon stressed about, and like how you guided them. And we can start with Maya.
I think the most important thing for anyone that's seeking any type of guidance or advice is, again, to trust professionals, to do your research on the credentials of the person that you are seeking. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors when it comes to social media, and as wonderful as a tool it is, there are a lot of people who don't really have to show their real work. They don't have to show the after, which is the week after. So it's important to, you know, really check in on your resources and make sure that you're in the right chair, first of all, and to invest in a professional that you know understands your hair. I think because so much of this natural hair space has been built on, again, the mistrust and misinformation and the miseducation of the Black woman as it pertains to beauty. It's really, really important for us to bring that back to the culture. Historically, salons and barbers shops and, you know, beauty spaces were the only place where Black people, and I'm speaking specifically, you know, about the Black female hair care experience, where Black people really were able to transfer information in exclusively Black space, right? So bringing that back to that space doesn't just enrich us when it comes to, you know, our beauty needs, but also helps us as professionals so into you as a community. I consider myself a change agent in my community. This is a service business. It's not just about what I'm able to do, you know, to get a check or to feed my family. This is also my ministry and how I serve my community. So giving me that opportunity to do that again, bringing us back to these professional spaces where there have been women who or men who are educated to provide this service to you, is also how we begin to rebuild and to grow our community. We've left these spaces and are so shocked and amazed that as a culture we can be so disconnected. So, you know, internet and social media is one thing, but it really does change who we are as a culture when we can get back to the face-to-face and begin to exchange information and to sow into each other in that way.
AJ, you want to go next?
Sure. I'll go next. I think my biggest thing, I think what I want to leave people with, kind of been, you know, I don't know, sitting on it. I think what Maya said a little bit earlier, just about, I think she mentioned just about like self-esteem and kind of the chair talks about, you know, like, what is your goal? What do you see yourself? Where did that come from? Maybe questioning that for your own self-esteem. Like, why do you want this? Or why do you want long hair? Why do you want this? Why do you want that? Because I think at the end of the day, at least for me and my journey, it has been about building my self-esteem and what makes me beautiful and why that makes me beautiful. And that's the journey that I've been on. And I think that's important. And I would also say, you know, finding somebody, you know, not kind of going back to your question about textures, you know, because I do think there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of bad kind of information on the internet, but I do think there's a lot of people that are doing great work with sharing the knowledge, finding someone with your similar texture and kind of seeing their path and kind of seeing the results that they have, I think would help somebody at least starting from the very beginning, maybe before that salon visit. So that would be mine.
So the one thing I think I want to leave everyone with is just some encouragement to, I think I could say this in the simplest way, figuring yourself out. I think so much we look outside of ourselves for how we want to look and what we want to do. Consulting a professional is one thing, but I think a lot of the texture envy and the things like that come from looking outside of yourself. It's a hard thing to do. And I was fortunate to be kind of in a space to do it young. But even no matter how old you are, I have clients as old as 65, as young as 12, watching them figure themselves out and come into their own is a beautiful thing to see. And I wish that on everyone watching. I hope that you find the style that makes you feel the most beautiful. I hope you find a professional that can help you get there. I hope that you learn how to manipulate your own hair at home so that you don't feel reliant on the salon. And I hope that if you haven't found any of those things yet, that you continue to not scour the internet, but do your Googles and do your searches, because there are people out there with the right information. So I thank you for even listening to what I had to say today, and I hope it was helpful.
Well, thank you, ladies, for joining us and educating us on this hair talk. Like, I learned a lot. I hope that our viewers learned a lot, and I really appreciate you guys. And Maya and AJ, I use both your products. And Daryce, I'm in New York. I'm definitely going to come check out your salon. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
hey, Lenny.
Lenny, say hi. Hi.
She was like, and I got one more thing to say.
I know. Well, let me close it out.
Right.
Mama, you forgot something.